Assalamu alaikum, guys. I'm tired again. It's 9:30, but I just wanted to touch on a topic today. I wanted to talk about death. Um, Today I had one of my elderly clients because I do support work, and she's 83 and she feels in herself that she's obviously getting closer to her time. She's an Italian beautiful lady. She's Catholic. Inshallah, God forgives her for everything because she's such a pure soul. Um, well, today, anyway, I was talking about her with death. We're very close. Her name's Josephine, my name's Josephine, and we're both very similar in personalities. And she lost her husband around 10 years ago, and obviously has been very lonely since. And she literally said to me the other day how she used to smile all the time, and then one day she just stopped smiling and stopped having this happiness. And I thought it made me very upset to hear because I feel like, as I've said in my last videos, when we start this adulting phase of our life or when we go through things, we stop, we just forget about doing things like smiling. Like when you're a child, all you want, well, if you had a good childhood, all you'd want to do was smile because you were so amazed by the world. You were so amazed by the new things you were learning. Well, to me, I was very curious and I loved learning all the time. But anyway, I asked her today, I was like, how do you feel about death? And like, we just have all these very meaningful conversations, and she is very comfortable with dying. She used to be very fearful of being in pain and, not having a peaceful death. But she feels now that she knows that she's going to return to her Lord and she's going to be at peace and she's going to be with her husband and she's going to be in a eternal, beautiful space. And she's quite religious. She's Catholic. I think I said that. Anyway, and before I found Islam again, whenever I would be asked, just a side note, whenever I'd be asked about death, it would always send me into like this disassociated depersonalization type of moment. Like, genuinely, I would speak about it with my friends and we would talk about how when you die, it's just pitch black. And, I used to always believe in heaven. I used to always obviously believe in Islam, but I didn't have the belief I do now. MashaAllah. Again, I'm so grateful to be guided back. But anyway, what I was saying was that I always was sent into this, like, it's like when you talk about death, you feel so distant from reality because no one's experienced death except those who have died. And you hear about all these stories. You hear, people dying when they're walking down the street, they get hit by a car, or you hear about your grandparents passing away, and you hear about, distant relatives passing away, and it's like, oh, they've passed, or this person's passed. And one day, someone is going to say to a person that knew you, oh, she passed away? Do you know Josie passed away? Do you know Josie? Yeah, she died. Like, that is going to be you one day. And we 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 associate death with such misery and morbidness, but the thing Islam does and the purpose of Islam is that it gives you life. Like, it gives life to death, if that makes sense, because we know that all of our good deeds, all of the fasting, all of the charity, everything we do in this life, it's preparing us for the afterlife. Even now, having strong belief in Allah and in Allah and not doubting his word or anything of the sort, it's still so hard as a human being to wrap your head around what it's going to be like in Jannah, inshallah, or what it's going to be like in the grave, or what it's going to be like when we die, and, who we're going to talk to and what we're going to see. Because at the end of the day, we only hear things, right? You only hear, this is going to happen or this is going to happen. I know in the Quran it says what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment and death and of the sword, and how if you're a good person your soul will be taken gently, etc. But at the end of the day, yeah, you don't know when your time's going to be, and you don't know how it's going to be like, genuinely. And sometimes you hear stories of people that have died and then they've come back to life, and some people say, oh, I felt this peace, or I felt this light, or I felt like I didn't want to come back, like it was such a beautiful feeling. And I don't know, you just don't, it's just like one of those, like in life, we all experience love, inshallah. We all experience hate. We all experience friendships. We all experience food tasting good. Even, yeah, the most simplest things, we all experience our feet touching the ground. But the one thing you don't experience is death. And it's still like, to me, it's like, wow, like I still sometimes get in that stage where I'm like, wow, my life is going to end. And like, that's when I think when you think about death more and you like get closer to Allah, that's when you get really spiritually enlightened because you really disconnect yourself from the world and you truly realize that this life is literally just a game. It's not real. And then you really think, oh my god, this reality I'm in is not real. Like it's not a reality. It's just a picture. Like it's just a moving picture that's going to end, and then we're going to be in the real reality, which is the afterlife. And yeah, I don't know. It's just so much. It's almost like I remember I heard once that when we think about the greatness of Allah, we can only think about it to a certain extent, right? Because the human mind is it's limited, okay? We're never going to be as intelligent as Allah. We're never going to be as smart or um yeah, we're never going to be like that. We are only capable to think as much as we are given permission to think by our Lord, if that makes sense. So it's like our interpretation of things, they reach a limit. Like the greatness, we know Allah is the greatest, right? But it's like we only know that greatness to a certain extent because the human mind cannot go to that next extent. But then also when you open your eyes and you get spiritually enlightened, perhaps you could reach a certain step. But what I'm trying to say is that humans are not we're not these perfect creatures that are angels, we're very imperfect. So it's like we can only understand things in certain ways and with certain limits is what I mean. Sorry, that was a stupid tangent. Not stupid, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so yeah, like even our understanding of death, it can only reach a certain extent until our brain just can't think about things anymore. But anyway, I guess this is I know it's like I feel like, we associate death as well with older people, but there's a lot of people dying young, and it shouldn't be like that. And maybe that's why a lot of young people now they're not as like I feel like there's been a bad rate of youth crime or youth, misguidance. And I feel like it's because we're really not thinking about death enough because we think it just happens to people that have lived their lives and people that are old. But God takes whoever's soul he wills at whatever time he wills. So, yeah. It's very dark to talk about death because I feel like with Islam, you always want to talk about forgiveness and how merciful God is because he is the most merciful. But then also, yeah, he's able to take your soul at any minute. And if you didn't obey him and if you didn't, you know, adhere to his rules, then it's up to him, isn't it? It's his judgment. And I think it's important to have fear, but I think it's also important to not live in fear and to live with an open heart. And I think I said in my previous video, like my previous interpretations of Islam growing up were always fearful. I always thought I was going to hell. I always thought I was going to die. I always had anxiety going to bed because I thought, God was never going to forgive me. And it was very backwards. But God is the most forgiving, and we can't forget that. And we can't, yeah. The biggest bad thing, the worst thing, sorry, that you could do is do a sin and then not ask for forgiveness because you think the sin's too bad. Like, genuinely, always ask for forgiveness. It's so important. Anyway, guys, mashallah, inshallah, we all go to Jannah. Yeah, like all of this that you're seeing right now, it's all going to be gone when we die or when I die. Like, you know what I mean? This moment will never happen again. Something to leave that on.